This is an incredibly influential film.
Absolutely. Every little moment works perfectly. It only gets better each time you see it.
Hidey-ho!
It is the definition of filmmaking at its best.
And it just lights up the screen. It kind of blows all the competition away. It's essential.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Are you a musical guy?
Yes, I am. I think that I relate it in many ways to animated features because if they're done badly, and most of them are, they really stink. And animation is, you know, intolerable when it's bad. And a musical that's gone wrong is also intolerable. But both mediums, animation and musicals, share that if they're done really well, they are infinitely reseeable. They are hypnotic, and they work better than anything when they're done well. And very few of them are done well, and Singing in the Rain is done really well.
What strikes you as being done particularly well in Singing in the Rain?
What isn't done particularly well in Singing in the Rain? Arthur Freed, who was the producer of the famous unit that did musicals at MGM, had collected songs that he had been involved with early on in his career. And
he was a songwriter.
He was a songwriter, and he basically populated this movie full of those songs from an earlier time, which is the 20s, which is where the story takes place. But the brilliant idea to put it around the coming of sound in Hollywood is just perfect for the medium of musicals, because there's something really freewheeling about that period and that particular moment in the medium of film where silent movies were ending and no one knew how to do sound, and you know, singing and dancing comes into that because that's what sound was for in those early films. It's a hilarious and wonderful idea for a musical, and every song is sort of cherry-picked. And you also have Gene Kelly, who is like the most athletic, freewheeling dance personality of that time, more so than Fred Astaire, who was very smooth and certainly unparalleled as a dancer. But Gene Kelly kind of embodied the everyman. I think if you were to ask the average Joe, then if you were a dancer, who would you be? They would choose Kelly more often than they would choose Fred Astaire.
You have more than one movie sort of in pre-production as we speak, but one of them's a musical.
Yes, and I mean, you know,
fingers crossed, right?
Fingers crossed, it'll work out. I'm doing it with Michael Giacchino. But both Michael and I, we really enjoy working together. He's done all of my films, the music for them, except Iron Giant. And we both are looking for that kind of challenge. It's really hard to do, and a lot of the weight goes on the composer to help make every song great. Well, Singing in the Rain is full of one great set piece after another, and there's a really silly quality to the film that is immediately apparent with this premiere that happens. It's hilarious, and Comden and Green wrote, I think, their best script for this movie. And like so many of these essential films, people, when they were making it, they didn't know that it was essential. They just thought they were making another one, and it's clear that somebody was having a good time on this movie because it looks like it. Now, if you read about it, you hear stories of Gene Kelly being super hard on Debbie Reynolds, and, you know, she's put through the ringer. She has to hold her own with not only Gene Kelly, but Donald O'Connor, who also has never been better than this film and has one of the greatest numbers in the history of musicals.
To me, it's the greatest number in the history.
Yeah, make them laugh. And the movie, as great as it is the first time you see it, for me, it stays that great, which is the definition of essential, no matter how many times you see it. The film is just designed to delight.
Let's take a look at it. We'll talk more afterwards. From 1952, directed by Gene Kelly and Stanley Donen, here are Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds, and Gene Hagen in Singin' in the Rain. This is filmmaking at its best.
It's essential.
The person, oddly, who might get the most credit for all these musicals is Arthur Freed. But that said, like, the collaboration, this is the definition of a collaboration. You mentioned them in the beginning. Freed had the idea to take the songs that he'd written with Nacio Herb Brown and then use them in a musical, but he didn't know the story. So Betty Comden and Adolph Green come in and they create this perfect story.
Perfect story, and just ripe for the picking. Once they come in there with sound coming in as the basis of the film, the sound coming into the movie industry, that's perfect for a musical. And it's a very comic time because nobody knew what they were doing and everybody was sweating in the movie industry. And that's always good for comedy.
And then we get these brilliant dancers in Kelly and O'Connor, and Kelly and Stanley Donen, who was a great dancer himself,
yes,
directing. And then you throw in Gene Hagen, who doesn't do a number, but that's the person who makes me remember the movie. When I think about Singin' in the Rain, I don't even think about dancing. I think about her performance,
right,
and that brutal, grating voice.
For heaven's sake, what's the big idea? Can't a girl get a word in edgewise?
And the way she turns on a dime from being hostile to Gene Kelly to being loving the moment that she feels like she needs him to advance her own
Which
career.
is the essence of Hollywood in so many ways.
That's right.
Yeah, and just the ending is both surprising and earned. I mean, the first time you see it, nobody sees it coming. The twist at the end that makes everything right. And the fact that they create a terrible situation and then solve it, within a minute of the end titles is one of those rare, perfect story occurrences that you just look for.
$2.5 million budget, more or less, $7.7 million on its initial release.
Which is huge for the day. I mean, I don't know what that equates now, but that's a giant hit.
I think it's a $4 trillion is what that is.
Okay, exactly that.
I punched it into my computer.
But it's also the obvious number that we're not mentioning is Singin' in the Rain, which is, again, another good Hollywood story is that he had a fever when he shot it, and he's like kind of sick as a dog, but he goes out there and acts happy-go-lucky for the cameras. It's one of those numbers that never fails to just elevate your mood.
The sun's in my heart and I'm ready for love.
It's very clean how they do it, and then they do this great boom shot where right at the moment where the camera rises, it feels like exaltation.
Come on with the rain, I've a smile on my face.
That is one of the best representations of pure joy that's ever been on screen. When you realize that they didn't have all the digital tricks we have now and they get these amazing effects on film, it only deepens your respect for all those craftsmen that made these movies, because you have to be really on your game to pull that off with what to us now is kind of primitive equipment.
All right, Brad, thanks very much, and we'll be back next week.
I can't wait.
Here's a little preview of what you'll be seeing next time on The Essentials. Billy Wilder's Ace in the Hole with Kirk Douglas from 1951. This is a savage look at the power of the press when that power is abused.
This is my story. I want to keep it mine.
Kirk Douglas is magnificent in this film. Billy Wilder is an amazing filmmaker because so many of his films are essential. But this film is not widely seen, and it is just as essential, if not more so, than all of those other films.
That's next Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for joining us for The Essentials.